The last touch for perfect car care happiness for me is the tires. Because there is nothing worse for me than seeing a car that is completely clean, washed, and shining beautifully. One has taken care of the glass, the plastic, and the paint. And then the tires look terrible. They are brown, they are discolored, they are ugly. This simply cannot be overlooked. That's why tires are just as much a part of car care as a good car shampoo or wax. And that's why we are now going to take a look at another product from this category in this video, namely the AutoBrite Direct Well Dressed, a nice product from England. We don't really need to beat around the bush for too long and unnecessarily prolong the video. It's a tire, which means at the end of the day, they are all very similar products. Not in terms of the ingredients, of course there are differences, but we apply them to the tires. Some can be left on, with others you have to wipe again, but then you're already done. There is nothing special in the application instructions on the back of the bottle that would pose any problems for us. Importantly, of course, there is also the price. AutoBrite is an English brand, and in England this 500 ml bottle costs £12.50. The Austrian online shop depoint.at now carries some products from AutoBrite, and you can currently get them for $19. As far as I know, there are no larger quantities of this, but I believe we have already covered the most important points here. No matter which tires you ultimately choose at the end of the day, what many forget, and what often leads to problems, such as tires turning brown over time or not lasting as long, is the lack of preparation. Just like plastic, paint, and glass, a tire also benefits when it is optimally prepared for sealing and care. The whole process is relatively simple for tires as well. You can use an alkaline pre-cleaner that you already have for your entire car to start with. You can also spray it on a tire. You can also use an APC that you have. Sonax Multistar, Kokomi Green Star, FX Protect APC, there are many that work really well. Or if you have a so-called wheel and tire cleaner, which means a rim and tire cleaner, these are usually alkaline products that are quite similar to an APC or a pre-cleaner, then you can also use them for tire cleaning. Attention, the rim cleaners with active indicators are the ones that tend to smell like rotten eggs and are the ones that change color. They are not suitable for that. You need an alkaline wheel cleaner without an active indicator. Or, if you want to go all out, then you should get a dedicated tire product. My recommendation at the moment is clearly the Dodge's new look, which works from Gion, but in my opinion, it is just as good. You spray all these products onto the tires, grab a brush, which can definitely have a bit stiffer bristles. And then you clean over it here for as long as it takes until the foam that forms no longer turns brown. It may be that you have to do this whole process 1, 2, or 3 times until it no longer turns brown. Attention, a very important tip. After you have cleaned over it for the first time, rinse your brush briefly. Many make the mistake of doing the first round of brushing properly, then the brown stuff comes out, and then they spray the cleaner on again, and the foam keeps turning brown. This is simply because there is still dirt in the brush. Rinse the brush, spray the cleaner on again, and then you will see that if the foam does not turn brown during the next pass, you have cleaned the tire and it is optimally prepared for such a tire. To assess the performance of products, we always need a reference product, especially with tires where there are different finishes. Some are glossier, others are satin, and some are completely matte. And that's why I will now apply the Meguiar's Endurance Tire Gel here in the middle, which is one of the best-selling tire or tire shine gels. And as the name suggests, this is a product that is known for finishing with a strong shine on the tire. That's way too much. I know, it just occurred to me while I was talking. I wasn't paying attention. I was too focused on you all. But let's go ahead and do it here now. And this is also a reference product in terms of application, as it is one of the most pleasant products to work with in this segment. Because it spreads very, very easily, even here in the grooves of the Michelin print. I wanted to say that the lettering is wonderfully easy to process. Very good. We have applied it, we can let it ventilate. Now, and focus on the actual test product. Alright, let's apply the Brite Well Dressed together. And see how well it works on the side of the tire here. Absolutely nothing complicated or groundbreaking in terms of application instructions. One should ensure that it is applied to a clean surface. One should not put too much on an applicator. Then carefully distribute the whole thing and wipe off any excess. So, nothing special. We shake the whole thing, which is always important with such products, unless something else is stated on the bottle. We open the dispenser head, which by the way is very good. Dog hair, let me tell you, as a dog owner, you can never get it all out. But, as German Shepherd owners say, it's not dog hair, it's German Shepherd glitter. You can already see that it is very thick. So I believe they have oriented themselves towards Meguiar's endurance as the market leader, so to speak. You can see that it spreads relatively easily. Relatively, because I find that Meguiar's spreads a little bit better, easier, and faster. And you can see I still need to go over it a few more times to make sure I have really spread it everywhere. In particular, I find that it can be applied in the grooves of tires, which are also partially present here on the surface of Meguiar's. It doesn't apply and spread quite as well. And you just saw I had to get a bit more product. So I don't think it's particularly economical to use in that sense. Very, very pleasant mandarin scent that lingers in the air and spreads while applying. So, yes, I would still say it's not something that will cause you problems, but it's not the easiest and fastest product. There are others that work a little better. We are looking at the finish of the car Bright Well Dressed together. Oh, yes. Definitely the same strong darkening, but perhaps also the same problems. You can see it with Meguiar's. One of the problems with this product is that it never completely evaporates. I can still wipe it around here and look at the edge here. You can see that I can spread it even more. I can now wipe it off with a microfiber cloth, but that will reduce the shine. And if I leave it as it is, I run the risk of getting splashes from the tire care product on the plastic or even on the paint. And when they dry out or react with the sun, that can cause real problems. Look at how it is with the car Bright Well Dressed. Oh, look. Also, it is not completely dry, but significantly better. Like the Meguiar's, this is exciting now. Let's see if the finish changes when I rub it. No. Wait, is it like that? Yes, indeed, I can almost do it here. Yes, indeed, I can still distribute it. Yes, you see, this is one where I would say you might want to go over it with a cloth. Let's do that. You see, then the shine is immediately gone, and the same goes for Meguiar's. Yes, there too, the shine is gone. So they are very, very similar. You can see that the tire is wet because now we come to another aspect. This one is not so important to me personally. I like a nice beading behavior on plastic or paint, just like all of you do. But I don't think it has to be the same for tires. So yes, but some of you are interested, so let's take a look at it. Here is the Meguiar's. Yes, it's okay. It's not a bad beading behavior, even in the entire market of tire care. And then AutoBrite is, in my personal opinion, I would say considerably more better than Meguiar's. You could say it's not outstanding, but yes, the AutoBrite can handle beading. So far, so good. You've seen everything important about the Enzo AutoBrite Well Dressed. That means we will see each other again in a few days, or maybe even in a few weeks for an update. As promised, we are now meeting on time for an update on my tire care test, specifically exactly 2 weeks after the application. As mentioned, a brief update exactly 2 weeks on the Enzo AutoBrite. And now we see here an absolutely perfect and classic example of why it is so important to use reference products. Meguiar's endurance, and here we have AutoBrite, and we can clearly see that in terms of darkening, Meguiar's is still stronger, and in terms of that typical greasy shine, Meguiar's is also stronger. Well, the Well Dressed has now lost some effectiveness. Don't forget, we also wiped it down briefly here, but you can see, you have to look. Can you see that on the camera? The Meguiar's looks a bit streakier. I find the Well Dressed to be just a little bit better. But here too, you can see we have a few spots and areas. We also have a few down here. Well, it's not a consistent, nice picture right now. because I have other tire care products on the car as well, they did a better job. For example, the Dodo Juice Dark Matter or Enzo, AutoBrite or Scholl. Slime, for example, creates a nicer, more consistent appearance. Let's see what remains of the beading behavior. First, Meguiar's is still present, and the same goes for AutoBrite. I would also say that AutoBrite definitely shows and cannot be dismissed. It works significantly and visibly better here. So from that perspective, one cannot say that it is gone. It has only suffered a little bit in terms of the finish. You have seen I have now applied the AutoBrite Well Dressed here again on an additional tire, so that you can also assess the finish on a whole tire. And I will also turn it a bit now, so that you can see it from this angle of the light incidence. I personally have to say, still the same result as on the single tire. In some places here, it hasn't completely dried and cured. It looks somewhat so. Here you can see it very well. You can see it very well. Unfortunately, it looks a little bit patchy in some places. I must also emphasize again, it is relatively tedious, and compared to others with more liquid tire care products, it is relatively difficult to work it cleanly into the grooves of these Michelin tires here. The same applies to similarly consistent tire care products such as Scholl Slime, which has the same problem. On the other hand, one must say that products like Enzo, Orbit, Sienna Gloss Rubber, or Dodo Choose Dark Matter, for example, can be worked into such grooves better, in my opinion. However, one can also say in a relative sense that an applicator sponge like the one I used here for all these tests is generally not very suitable for these grooves. A brush or something like that would be better. A brush applicator is simply better suited. This means that in terms of application, AutoBrite doesn't score as many points, and for completely streak-free drying, it also doesn't score as many points. I personally find the finish beautiful. It is satin matte, but leans more towards shiny. However, the entire tire looks nice and rich. It is dark and has a strong color. And that's why I think, purely in terms of finish, I must say it is very, very beautiful. It can compete with other tire care products available on the market. Additionally, there is this very, very pleasant mandarin scent that we also have when applying it. Now we have seen and I have shown you and said that we still have some product residues here. Now I would like to briefly show you what I have discovered about how we can get the most out of the finish of AutoBrite Well Dressed. The following applies, however, generally to all tire care products you have. They do not absorb completely into the tire and tend to sit a bit on top. You grab a microfiber cloth. It can also be a cheap, inexpensive one because it will get dirty. You wipe after the tire care has had enough time. I would also recommend here wait a few hours so that what can penetrate really has penetrated. Then you just wipe again here, so to speak, to remove the product residues you have. Now you have the following problem. The tire care products that promise a lot of shine, you have now removed the layer that is supposed to create that shine, and you can see that it now looks absolutely satin matte. If you like this finish, you can stop now. If you want to achieve more shine, then take the product again, put it back into your preferred applicator, and now simply distribute the product on top again. Make sure to really work it into the tire nicely, just like the first time. then you are temporarily done, because now the process repeats. It's best to wait a few hours now. And once you have done that, we will simply speed up the whole thing. Just imagine that I have waited here for a few hours. Make sure that everything dries as much as possible, and then you go over it again with a cloth. Remove the excess that has not been absorbed into the tire. And this way, you also have a significantly lower risk of getting tire care splashes on the side of the car. But this way, in my opinion, you can get a little more out of the possible finish of the AutoBrite Bright. I will show it to you now. I personally think now you can see it better. In this light, we now have a beautiful, clean, rich, satin matte finish. And I just wanted to share this as a trick for the AutoBrite Well Dressed. Let's move on to my personal conclusion about the AutoBrite Well Dressed. A difficult conclusion for me, as I have to phrase it as follows. I personally like it, but I can't recommend it to all of you outright, because I'm not enthusiastic enough about it. And I'm also not convinced that it is better or superior in any way. The AutoBrite market is anyway completely saturated with brands and products. Especially in the area of tire care, it must be said that every brand out there has its own tire care product. There are simply too many, and there are simply too many that work well. Or rather, I have to phrase it differently. In the area of tire care, it is much harder to find a bad one than to find a very good one. And when you really break it down to the objectively visible and measurable factors, I personally have to say that, at the end of the day, they all do roughly the same thing. And I am convinced that when it comes to tire care, we are much more talking about personal preferences, because yes, there are differences in the finish. Some shine more, some are satin matte, and some are mattes. There are definitely differences. And there are also differences in the product composition. Water-based, solvent-based, oil-based. Some absorb nicely and cleanly into the tire. Some sit more on top. But those that absorb nicely are usually the ones that are matte. This means that if you want a certain shine, you have to accept that these are somewhat oilier, greasier products. So much for tire care in general. And I have to say, for me personally, the mandarin scent that the Well Dressed brings is beautiful. But AutoBrite has always been good when it comes to scents. I personally find that if you give the product enough time to really absorb cleanly, then the finish is also beautiful. And in that regard, here is my very clear recommendation. First, apply the whole thing, let it air out, then wipe it down again with a microfiber cloth. Wait, and then apply another layer, and then wipe it down again with the cloth. In my view, this gives you the best, the most beautiful finish, and that's the only way to achieve it. If you just go over it once with the applicator and don't wipe it down again, then you'll have slight streaks, a somewhat uneven finish, and maybe some light residues. There are products that work better. I'm especially thinking of Stiana Gloss Rubber, Dodo Juice Dark Matter, Scholl Slime, and Enso Orbit, for example. They absorb more cleanly here. It is similar to the Meguiar's Endurance Tire Gel in that regard. And I have to say personally, I prefer this product much more than the Meguiar's Endurance. The Endurance is a great product. It shines very nicely, and it also lasts comparatively long. But, as I have clearly shown you, it remains relatively greasy. I also think that's why it attracts dirt a bit more and it never completely dries. I definitely prefer the Order much more. Due to all these little issues I just mentioned, you have to be a bit more careful when applying it. It doesn't spread as easily, quickly, and simply as others. You might need to wipe it again, and then there isn't much left except for the very pleasant scent. On the other hand, I have to say again, it doesn't cost a fortune. So, if you want a tire care product that is satin matte, to somewhat glossy, that smells very pleasant like mandarins, and doesn't cost a fortune, then you can get this. If you already have a tire care product that you are convinced of and satisfied with, then the AutoBrite Well Dressed won't offer you anything you don't already have. And I believe this conclusion is fair. Now each of you can decide whether you want to give the AutoBrite Well Dressed a chance or not. If the video was helpful, informative, exciting, and interesting for you, we would be very happy if you leave us a thumbs up, support the channel with a free subscription, and tune in for the next video. Goodbye.